Hi, this is Krishna Iyer with the Iyer think tank in Delray Beach. This short podcast is about Donald Trump. Today's podcast is specifically about Donald Trump as well as the war in Iran. We are currently Sunday, March 15th, and we are on day 17 of this war. And we have a few articles, two of which are specifically about Donald Trump. One is from the Daily Beast. It is that Trump's humiliating war miscalculation exposed. And the other is the world is watching America lose its moral compass and global credibility. So let's start. This is a article from The Hill. It's an American paper. So let's start. By any conventional measure of power, the U.S. remains formidable. Its military power is unmatched, and it still possesses the world's largest national economy. Yet the power in the 21st century has never rested on material capabilities alone. For decades, America's true strategic advantage lay in something less tangible but more potent. Its capacity to attract, its ideals, its openness and professed commitment to universal values conferred a moral authority that made alliances easier, its influence deeper, and its leadership more legitimate. The advantage is now being squandered. The current focus on the U.S.-Israeli war of Iran should not obscure a larger reality. The damage the second Trump presidency is inflicting on U.S. soft power, on the very credibility that made American leadership possible, is profound and likely to outlast the administration itself. The concept of soft power, a term coined by late Harvard scholar Joseph Nye, rests on three pillars: an appealing culture, political values that country actually upholds, and a foreign policy imbued with moral authority. Today, each of those pillars is being eroded. The most visible fracture is domestic. President Trump's rhetoric has normalized a form of racialized politics that previous generations of American leaders from both parties publicly rejected. His disparaging comments about Somali immigrants, like his circulation of dehumanizing imagery of the Obamas, revived some of the ugliest tropes in the long history of racial oppression. These are not isolated excesses. They signal to the world that the U.S. is retreating from the very values it once claimed as its moral core. For audiences across Africa, Asia, and Latin America, whose regions and histories are deeply scarred by European colonialism and extractive rule, such rhetoric is not just offensive, it is revealing. It suggests that the language of equality and human dignity, long invoked by Washington in international forums, may have been a less principled commitment than a convenient instrument of power. The perception is reinforced by what Trump and his team now say about the world beyond America's borders. In his January 21 address in Davos, Trump spoke with disarming candor about territorial acquisition and imperial expansion. Voicing nostalgia for colonialism, he said European empires had simply acquired great vast wealth, great vast lands all over the world, adding that there's nothing wrong with it. This was a statement of worldview. Secretary of State Marco Rubio's February 14th address at the Munich Security Conference only sharpened the point. He praised Western colonialists for settling new continents and building vast empires extending across the globe, lamenting what he called a terminal decline of those empires after World War II. The signal was unmistakable. The age of empire was not just a moral tragedy, but a civilizational achievement. Different tone, same message. The past, they praise, rests on racial domination. No mainstream Western leader has voiced such unvarnished neo-imperial yearning in decades. For European allies who have spent 80 years publicly renouncing colonialism, and for countries across the global south that fought to escape it, the implications are jarring. When American leaders speak this way, they do more than offend. They delegitimize the very international order the U.S. claims to uphold. Words are only part of the story. Under Trump, they are increasingly matched by actions that suggest a return to 19th century imperial precedents. From renewed pressure for U.S. control over Greenland and the Panama Canal to open-ended military intervention in Venezuela and talk of redrawing borders and relocating populations, the administration has revised a logic more familiar of the age of empires than to the post-1945 international system. The old Monroe Doctrine has been globalized into a claim that American power itself has legal authority. The capture of Venezuelan president, the tightening of a blockade that has depressed Cuba's humanitarian crisis, and the assassination of Iran's supreme leader represent a pattern that erodes major principles of international law. The worldview may strike its proponents as a restoration of strength. In reality, it is a confession of insecurity. Great powers confident in their legitimacy do not need to glorify conquest or invoke racial hierarchy. They rely instead on the willingness of others to follow their lead. The willingness is precisely what is now eroding. The consequences are already visible. Allies hedge. Partners question U.S. commitments. Countries across the global south, long lectured by Washington on democracy and human rights, now hear such rhetoric with growing skepticism. Rivals from Beijing to Moscow find it easier to portray the U.S. as hypocritical and self-serving. Now, none of this means American decline is inevitable or irreversible. The U.S. has reinvented itself before. The greatest strength has always been its capacity for self-correction. But renewal begins with recognition. The tragedy is not merely that America's image is being tarnished by signals of a retreat into racialized nationalism and nostalgia for empire. It is that the very qualities that once made U.S. leadership attractive are being dismantled by American hands themselves. Credibility once lost is hard to regain. Trust once broken is not easily restored. If the U.S. continues down this path, the Trump presidency will not merely mark a contentious chapter of domestic politics. It will be remembered as the moment when America forfeited the moral authority that sustained its global influence, thereby accelerating a relative decline that no amount of military or economic power can easily arrest. So excellent article on the U.S., basically they're racist, the racist gangsters of American Christianity, the racist American Christian gangsters and how they behave. They have behaved as imperialists. They have showed themselves as imperialists. They have showed themselves as, butchers. They have showed themselves as butchers. They have committed the crime of aggression. They have committed the crime of aggression in Venezuela and Iran, as well as Cuba. They have committed the crime of humanity in Iran. They have, murdered and slaughtered civilians in Iran. All of those things, show that the U.S. is, really checking down an imperialist pathway. And this imperialism, Donald Trump, he's not suited for it. I mean, ultimately, the bottom line is Donald Trump is poorly suited for these credentials. He is poorly suited to take American credibility down into the toilet bowl with his, campaigns like this. He is a racist, number one. He is a racist, unheard of in 2026. A racist with all kinds of anti-black sentiments, all kinds of anti-Muslim sentiments,